Okay, thank Now we are going to review the community norms. Everyone participates. Step up, step back, participate fully and evenly. Listen well for deep understanding and respect. Be fully present and open to new learning. Speak your discomforts. Place tag on silent and stay checked in. Sharing using I statements. Share responsibility for the success of every meeting. Next slide, please. The agenda for today, we will be discussing conference logistics, and we will also be discussing conference learning arts. And the outcomes for today's meeting is to confirm conference dates and links, and also to confirm conference learn arts.
And we are going to pass it over now to Nakia if you want to go ahead with the NBCC logistics.
I didn't know that was coming up so fast. So awesome. Okay. What? Pay attention, Nakia, pay attention. Hey, I'm thinking about Miss Lewis, my second grade teacher. She had a ruler back in the day when that was allowed at schools. And so that's what Miriam actually reminds me of. She's quite mean to me. So anyway, you just don't know. You just don't know. So let's talk about logistics. That's the most fun thing ever. So we've all decided to go virtual for 2021. Sad, but necessary. And normally our conference is a day and a half to a day and 3/4. And we have our membership meeting typically on Thursday, and we have our conference on Friday, and that portion of a day on Saturday. Now that we're moving to a virtual format, we kind of have to renegotiate. Nobody is going to meet with us on Saturday morning, right? Or Friday night. So it's time to renegotiate. And so we are proposing that we kind of do the same dates. And I want to do the same dates because we have so many partners who are also doing meetings, and I'm assuming that their meetings will be virtual or in person, but probably within the same windows as they typically are also. And so we are proposing to meet June 9th through 11th, which is Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, for 3 half days. And the proposal for 3 half days is because we're meeting virtually, we can't just kind of meet at 9 a.m. because 9 a.m. is 6 a.m. Well, I'm on the East Coast, so I'm East Coast centric, right? So 9 a.m. is 6 a.m. on the West Coast, right? And so, and Grace, I'm sure you don't want to come to a 6 a.m. Although you love us, I'm sure you're not coming to a 6 a.m. meeting. And so we propose to do essentially 3 afternoons. It could start at 12 or 1. I mean, that part doesn't need to get clarified at this point. But we propose to do like a 12 to 4 or 1 to 4 or something like that for 3 days in a row. We could also consider like days scattered throughout the month of June. But I think that giving it that same conference feel, kind of packing it together, kind of helps us to have a start and a close that's pretty concrete. So that's the proposal, and I'm putting it out there to kind of get your feedback and see what you thought. And let me just be clear, Camille did this lovely slide and came up with all of these great talking points, and I think that I've represented it well, but this is what she kind of thought through.
So I would just want to ask, have we done any sort of assessment of likely participants, of whether they would be able to be there on weekdays? I know historically we did Friday, Saturday because of travel, trying to get it to the end of the work week. But I've also heard a lot of people saying that they weren't able to leave their jobs to be able to attend. And I have no idea how the current online work environment will affect that. I also know that a lot of people specifically attend for their jobs, and so they wouldn't want to attend on a Saturday, but I'd just love to know if we've done any sort of pulse check about that.
You know, we haven't done a pulse check, but I think that the beauty of doing 3 afternoons is that people still get to do their work day in many ways. Like you still get to do a half day. And if you're on the East Coast, it's a half day in the morning. And if you're on the West Coast, it's a half day in the afternoon. If you're in the middle, then you have an hour or two before and an hour or two after. So it allows people, I think, to kind of still engage their work and also engage the conference. You're right. We have a lot of people who are volunteers at their organization, and because the nature of their volunteer work, I think that they probably they have that struggle, that tension space of being able to attend on a weekend versus weekday. I think that in this virtual environment, we are actually less likely to engage people on a weekend. If we could put a pin in it and kind of, talk to folks and see what other people's kind of experiences are. But I personally think, and from the research that Camille started, I believe that this is probably essentially the best way forward at this point. I actually think that we're going to have to, obviously, we haven't gotten to this point in logistics, we'll have to bring down the cost of attendance considerably. But I also think that this virtual format will also allow us to reach a considerably larger number of people to be able to engage with us and who may consider joining us for a conference in future years in person. Thoughts from anybody else? If you guys are all talking, I just want you to know you're on mute. And because I can only see a few people, I don't know if anybody is chatting me up.
There are definitely going to be some great pros and cons to having this virtual. I have found in this new normal that a lot of people are saving their sacred space of the weekends for trying to do some self-care or some other things, and that people who are working and attending virtual things like to do it instead of their usual work schedule. So we are proposing doing the Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Is that correct? Hey there.
We said Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yeah.
Okay, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Okay. So I think that'll give people who are still, because of course most of us are still essential workers. It'll still give us an opportunity to kind of take some time per se. He's fine. He's fine. Take some time per se from work to attend, but still be on the work clock. It will be interesting to see the input, the other additional input that you receive. But I think people will probably appreciate that it's during the week and not impeding into the weekend for some other things, or being kind of having to be off the clock to attend.
Also, and I should be real honest, like my team everybody is working really hard doing all the stuff that they're doing. I can't ask my folks to work on a Saturday virtually in the midst of a pandemic and uprising and climate crisis. Like all of the stuff that we're all dealing with. Like I don't want Miriam or Danae or Cheryl or Camille to be pulling this together on a Saturday afternoon at a time when they're not traveling for it when they have to,
Right, that makes great sense. Hey there. Hey.
Does anybody feel like there's a different window that we should consider, or that, and I saw Carol's point about 1 p.m. really being the earliest you could start when you begin to kind of consider California, Hawaii, and Alaska too, actually, right? So that's an excellent point. But tell me, like, where's your gut feeling, folks? You can do the little thumbs up. I see a thumbs up there. There's a reaction at the bottom of your screen. You can give me thumbs ups. And I do, like, that's something that we can consider, Grace, in the chat box for those of you who can't see. Grace is saying, what about the option of providing the recorded conference? Yeah, I think that once the conference is done, people can probably access a recorded conference. It would be not free. I will honestly say that because I'm here for the bottom line. But yes, I think that people who attend the conference would have access to listen to other sessions that they weren't able to attend in person. You know, so that's an option, and people should also be able to purchase sessions that they weren't, if they didn't attend the conference at all, they should be able to purchase sessions.
Mhm. Mhm.
So if there's no one who's like, I think that we should not do this, then I think that my one slide might be done. All right, thank you. Thank you all that you made that really simple and easy, and thank you for your feedback. I think you gave us some good stuff to consider around timing and really doing a kind of a gut check with all of you about even whether or not you want to come to a conference on Saturday from your house.
Great. Thanks, Nikia. So getting into the Learning Arcs brainstorm, I'm going to switch the view in just a second, but thank you for everyone who participated in these surveys. All your suggestions were, reviewed and compiled into these 5 kind of sections that we were able to bring together. Please let us know if these sections, if you think there's one missing or if there's one you really like, please let us know. And these 5 are policy and advocacy, community organizing and resilience, or community organizing and resilient leaders, partnerships, leaderships, and emergency preparedness and response, or IYCFE. These are, the ones that really stood out to us. We have some sub bullets here that has kind of the language that you all used, from the SGCTA to kind of mobilizing and organizing. So what are people's thoughts? And we are trying to bring it down to 3 learning arcs. So from these 5, if we want to bring it down to 3, or if you feel that any is missing, please share your thoughts.
And we actually have a poll to vote on the 3, but we want to give some time for discussion first. So first we want to hear your feedback, and then we'll launch that when you're ready.
I'm sorry.
I wonder whether I just said in the chat, I think you guys are so incredibly gifted at distilling and categorizing. Time and time again, I see you get all this complex input and somehow manage to make it sort of a cohesive body of work. That said, I wonder whether we could in some way integrate people's contributions about organizational, community and individual resilience and community mobilization into leadership and or partnerships. It seems like that part doesn't necessarily need to be lost if we were to infuse it in other places as well. But I see how it's clearly a distinct category as well.
Yeah, this is Carol. I think I agree with you on that, Emily. And I also think that maybe we can fold partnerships, because partnerships are a way to get to the work that we do, rather than having them as having it as a separate learning arc, incorporating it into how we talk about the other areas. Just a thought.
In other words, we're not willing to let go of anything.
Okay. Any other ideas? Thoughts?
This is Alyssa. Just one thing to consider, I know we brought up when we were looking at these as staff, is just taking a look again at our overarching theme, and then sort of which kind of learning arcs fit underneath our overarching theme and make sense to that ready for anything approach.
Yeah, thanks for that, Alyssa. So let's see.
The other thing I would add is that the learning arcs are really just the first step. And like when we're thinking about the content, we also have an opportunity to build learning objectives. And so there is a space where we could take some of the more detailed nuances here and build them into the learning objectives as well. So I do want to just lift that up. that we don't have to be super, super detailed in the learning arcs, and the objectives are really a space where we can fill that out.
Thanks, Danae. So is there anything, so it sounds like we want to keep everything, which is great. I think both of you are right. We can definitely have some of these components. And as Danae said, if we had, for example, a leadership arc, and then one or two of the objectives under it were, you know, to have resilient leaders and community organizing, then that could kind of work to keep all of these really powerful words in the conference.
I have a thought, and I think that this might be echoing what Carol and was saying. What would it look like, and also kind of pulling at what Danae said, like if you did, because I'm gonna be honest and give my point of view. I only went 3 arcs because we have a small team and we have 3 days, and we get to kind of organize in a more tailored way without everything on the table. And so I know I love everything too. And so, but I'm still going to argue that we figure out how to slim this down. And so, given that partnership and leadership are so incredibly vital, if you want to do policy and advocacy, if you want to move work in the community, if you want to organize around infant and young child feeding, what would it look like? Now, what we might lose here is like each and every one of these things below it, and each of these things are just those individual bits that you all gave us. Okay, thank you. Like, oh no. What would it look like if under each objective there was, under each learning arc, there was a core objective, one around partnership and one around leadership within policy and advocacy, within emergencies, and within IYCF, and within community organizing and resilience?
That
Can you
sounds
say
like
that
a
one more
great
time?
way. Mhm.
I said within, if I love leadership and I hate for leadership to leave, and I understand that partnership is critical too, but I feel like we should put numbers on these, to do policy and advocacy, to do community organizing and working on resilience, and to do infant and young child feeding and emergencies, you need leadership and partnership. And so I'm putting out there, what would it look like for us to say that under each of under 1, 4, and 5. She's going to figure out these numbers in a second. I'm sure it's harder than it looks. Under 1, 4, and 5, that there be an objective, a learning arc or objective that touches on one on partnership and one on leadership within those domains.
This is Carol. I also, I think every year, every conference that we have or convening that we have something that really stands out. And I think I agree with keeping community organizing as the name of a learning arc, because I think community organizing is it's not up and coming. It's been there for decades and decades. But I think this is a year when community organizing is really critical. Or this now and through the next year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nakia, I do like how you were trying to weave leadership into the other arcs. That does make great sense. As we're talking about the other information, to automatically put that in, because it's going to take that leadership part in all of those other places in order for that to work. I'm trying to figure out another one we can do that too as well, so we can get you down to where you want to be.
So if we do what Nakia is saying, and Nakia, maybe you can tell me if I'm interpreting this correctly. If we do what you're suggesting, that would leave us with the 3 arcs, right? Policy and advocacy, community organizing, emergency preparedness and response. Is that what you were saying?
Right. It would.
So what is the other that we are trying to weave in? What's the other that we are?
Partnership.
Can we consider weaving partnership into community organizing?
Interesting. Yeah, because these community organizations definitely need some partnerships.
Yes.
Okay, so are we ready to do the poll? Maybe finalize that? Do you
I
have?
think so.
Oh, I think I can launch it.
Well, so if we do what Nakia is proposing, then this poll, should we do this as like a, if we don't combine like Nakia said, then this is what we want to focus on?
Yeah, so kind of just like a confirmation that everybody's agreeing to do what Nakia is saying.
Look at that. That's beautiful with our 2 votes so far.
All right, I'll go ahead and launch it. Here we go. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, cool. Okay. Miriam, did you launch it or did I? You're
I can't tell. I can't see it.
okay. Me neither. But all of you were able to vote. You see it and you.
I saw the vote.
I
I mean,
voted.
it was 6
I saw it
people who
briefly
voted.
and voted, and then it
6
just
people
I
appeared.
voted.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, we can't see. Like we can't see it. That's very interesting. Okay. Okay.
Oh, I saw it, and 6 people voted, and 6 people voted, and it was policy, and it was 1, 4, and 5 of the 6 people who voted, and that's exciting. We have learning arcs. We need to come up with some better names for the learning arcs.
Right.
Is the idea, but like we killing the game. Like we got dates, we got learning arcs. Like, do y'all get how awesome this is? I have heard about this. I heard a rumor that you guys were working on learning objective or arcs 1 year in like February. So like, look at how hard we got this.
Yeah, that's amazing. Honestly, we are super excited. And now we can actually, we have so much time. We can get on to thinking about plenaries.
Well, do we want to wordsmith the learning arcs, or do we want to move on and start thinking about plenaries? We've got about an hour right now. Do we want to spend a few minutes thinking through what the learning arcs could look like with the title and framing? This is you know, the committee's call if you want to move on or not.
I would vote that we do wordsmithing, either like let a core team take first hack or do it electronically.
We
So
can do
Emily,
that.
are you saying doing it now or
No, I'm saying do it via email or like let the staff take a first hack and present it back for, you know, review. But I'm just one voice.
Hi, bud.
I'm gonna support you, and I'm gonna support you because I have been on other meetings where a whole, not just here at USBC, I've done it at NACCHO too, where a whole group is working on some particular words, and it is like my least fun job ever. So,
This is
ways that the team could work on it and then give it back to you in like a Survey Monkey or whatever, and then talk about it.
Yeah, this is Carol. This is Carol, though. I want to drop just one word in there. I don't know if it's captured anywhere, but under community organizing and resilience, is there some way to capture the power of community organizing? So it's one thing to be resilient, but it's another thing to be, you know, to take it by the horns. And
Yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely something they are doing this year, if they haven't been already doing
yeah,
it.
I like
yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Thank you,
Oops, sorry.
Is there, but without wordsmithing, is there any other places where people feel like I really want to make sure like that I get a thought out there on the table anywhere for any of these? Like we can do like a 3-minute pull in of like, wow, as I look at these, I feel really strongly about this thrust, or this word needs to be there somewhere.
Sure, let's do that.
So the
Not,
last words means that you guys are good, or was it about to come?
I was just going to say, not so much wordsmithing, but my initial thought just seeing the slide when it came up was the bullet under partnerships for the Surgeon General call to action. I was thinking that could be under policy. I know we're working out 2 and 3 to go into the other ones, but that was just a thought that I had.
Okay. We got it. We're making note of that.
One last thing, maybe just so we capture it, under communications, there's communications related to how we communicate the purpose of what we're doing and how we communicate to decision makers. But there's also the communication around how we tell our story so that it is told better. So we present the numbers better. So we maybe change the narrative a little bit from the traditional old way of doing it. Maybe not traditional, but the old way of doing it. You know, it includes everything from comparing numbers, and I know that's under research, but comparing breastfeeding rates to a white standard, for example. That's a communication issue. It's not just research. So it's those kinds of things. How do we communicate? Yeah, I have to think about it too, but I don't want to lose it either.
I'll help you out. I put a little bit of words in the chat box for you, Miriam. I know you're trying to capture everything. So with that said, I think that thank you all for sharing your thoughts on like, here's some gut stuff that I think needs to kind of move around. I want to make sure that that word power is here. As we're looking at some of the stuff that was under one category, another, you told us about things that maybe that's not really a partnership. Maybe that's really policy and advocacy. Cool beans. This is not your last opportunity to get that out there. Also, I'd like to point out that all of these things here under policy and advocacy or under any of these other bits, this may not translate to an actual learning objective. These were the actual like potential learning arcs that people gave. And so when this gets crafted down, it may not be all of this stuff because we're not going to have such a very distinct kind of like learning objectives, you know what I mean? I think that, but we're going to play with it and we're going to give you an opportunity to kind of respond to it. And actually, this is a lot of good stuff. Like when I just look at this page again, there's a lot of good and fun stuff here. So we have a lot of stuff to work with and it's exciting. And we are so early in the game to be able to go on to the next. Another thing that you're going to get, and they're probably going to tell you this already, is that as we begin to play with the learning objectives, you are going to get another survey once the learning arcs are laid out to help give us the actual learning objectives also, so that we're not developing it in a vacuum, like we collectively do it. So I think that we're talking about, what is it, Miriam? Plenary speakers.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nakia. So now that we have kind of these highlighted bits that will turn into our beautiful learning arcs, we do want to think about plenary speakers. And the previous survey did have this question of which plenary speakers would you think about based on the learning arc that you recommended, right? So we have a couple here. This is building resilience. So we did keep this this topic as a learning arc, and we have Lucy Hone and Kimberly Crenshaw. And we can go through these one by one if people think that's okay. Did anybody who kind of proposed these two or have heard of these two wanted to talk about pros and cons? And I see some additions in the chat box. I'll bring that over.
Both of these are mine, though I think for slightly different areas. Kimberly Crenshaw, I just think is like, I would love to see her speak in general. She's amazing. And I think really gets at an important topic of intersectionality in the work that we do. Lucy Hone, I've seen her speak, and she also gave a really nice TED talk on building resilience and studies resilience on the individual and community level. So I think she's both a good speaker and knowledgeable about that content area. But the other people who I know who study resilience either are like huge, Brene Brown kind of people, or people that I don't think are really appropriate to our audience. So those are mine.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Is there anybody else who comes to mind for this topic? And let's remember that building resilience is going to have, community organizing, resilient leaders, the power of community organizing. And I can start a new slide for our ideas.
I'm sorry, I thought I was on mute.
Oh, wow, that's a lot of money. Are there any other suggestions or?
I do think one thing that we've talked about some in the board, and I feel like I'm talking a lot, so if I'm talking over anyone who's trying to get in, shut me up. But one thing we've talked about is that the history of community organizing is longer and deeper and more successful in communities of color, especially in Latinx and Black communities in the United States. And so to Carol's point about really making sure that we're explicit in telling the story and showing power and strength, I think it's worth thinking about that in terms of our speakers, but also making sure that that's clarified. I think a lot of times we talk about collaboration and constellations like it's a new technology in the US, which is a very white-centric way of thinking. And so I'd love to disrupt that narrative.
Thing I think that we can do on our own as a staff team is look at conferences of community organizing conference or community action conferences, to see who's at those tables. Who are some of those keynotes? What are some of those conversations that are happening there? Even looking through even a slide deck, or not the slide deck, looking at the panel of presenters to kind of see what messages kind of resonate. And I think that that's a good place to look. And although this is about community organizing and resilience or whatever, I think that it's important to note that we're going to be looking for speakers who are able to kind of help us tie some of the things together. So even though this person is going to be talking about community organizing, they're going to need to be talking about partnership. They're going to need to be talking about leadership. And because of the actual times and while they likely won't be talking about infant and young child feeding in emergencies, they may be speaking to like a digital divide or broadband. Well, digital redlining is the newer term, right? Broadband apartheid or those things, because it's probably impacting some of their work too. So when you're thinking about who, don't necessarily put them in a bucket all by themselves. Like when you're thinking large, like who can help us tackle some of this big stuff? And so we're going to do that part of looking at community organizing folks who might be able to kind of get us some of that way. How does that feel? Okay.
Nice. Okay, so we can move on to the next one. We have communications and advocacy, and these were suggested as well. Don Hunter, Gretchen Carlson, Julie Dar, and John Oberlander. Has anybody heard them speak? Have any thoughts?
Those are also me, but I want to just make an opportunity for other people to speak first.
Thanks, Emily.
So if you didn't get a chance to fill out the survey, this is a great opportunity for you to share what your thoughts are regarding the topics and speakers that you know of that could be added to this list.
Mm-hmm.
So Tamika, Martha, Dana, anything you'd like to suggest?
Yeah, I didn't do the survey because I didn't have any new ideas for the learning arcs. I liked what we had discussed in the previous call, but I was gonna suggest Dr. Anjali Palmquist for IYCFE.
Awesome. Thank you.
And then I think Paulina, is it Arises, is doing some IYCFE work, but I don't know if she'd have something for a plenary.
Yeah, we can certainly add her to the list as a suggestion. Nakia's chatted ASI. We know Lourdes Santabaya is the leader of ASI, and they do really great work in Puerto Rico. Grace is suggesting Kimberly Seals Allers for communications. We've had Kimberly come and speak a few times at our conference, and she's really great at energizing folks. And I see Martha's chatted that she was going to do some research for speakers, but hasn't had the opportunity yet. That's fine. We have some time, like Nakia said. We're kind of early in the game, so there will be more opportunity for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And so if we want to keep going down this list, we also have managing uncertainty, which we have two other speakers here. I'm not sure I know how to pronounce this, but Shekinah Elmore and Pema Chodron. Do you have any thoughts on these presenters?
And also, Emily, if you want to share Yeah, if you want to share about the other suggestions you made so that we could just have a little bit of background about them, that'd be great too.
Yes, so all of these people are people who I've heard speak either in person or virtually, and I think could do a nice job of speaking to these topics. There certainly are many others, but they were just names that came to mind, and where I sort of took a moment to just look and confirm that my memory of what they were talking about made sense for what I was suggesting. John Oberlander, I think we're going to know soon whether or not he makes sense. I consider him one of the nation's leading analytical thinkers about the Affordable Care Act, and more generally about the American health, what he would call the lack of a system of American healthcare. So that may, depending on what happens constitutionally with the Supreme Court and with the election, it may or may not be somewhere where we're really needing to rally. There's no plan B right now for not having Affordable Care Act. And so a lot of the things that we've really integrated in the last few years may go away, in addition to the health crisis and health system crisis that we're in. So he might be able to really give some strong recommendations, but he's also just kind and soft and funny. So I think that he, if this does turn out to be, continuously threatened after the election, I think he could be a great speaker to that particular topic. But I know it may be a little more government-y policy, although if we're doing a policy arc, then yeah, I think he's amazing.
Awesome, thank you. And then did you say you also suggested Shekinah?
I did. They're just people who I think do a really nice job of studying and speaking about. To me, it's always really important, not just that you're an expert in an area, but that you're also expert at communicating about it and engaging an audience. I think particularly when you're in a virtual environment and everyone's exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all people who I've personally experienced talking about those topics, either in person or virtually, and I thought were really approachable and interesting.
Nice, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that insight. That is a lot of presenters. I think we have a really broad pool right now. And as Nakia and Danae said, this is definitely not the last opportunity to suggest people. So keep thinking, keep researching. We will all be doing that definitely in the next couple of weeks. And we will be sending out a survey for any last minute thoughts.
Okay, awesome. So I think we can actually move on. If there aren't any other suggestions right now, we can move on and wrap up almost 30 minutes early. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so our next steps, I'll start with CPC. So as Nakia mentioned, we would like to get some feedback from you regarding the learning objectives. So what we'll do in the wrap up or the follow-up email that we send out, we'll have a link to a survey where you can suggest up to 3 learning objectives for each of the learning arcs. And so we'll share that out within the follow-up email. And then it will also be an opportunity for you to think about additional plenary speakers and share those. What the staff is going to do now that we have our date for the dates for the conference, we are going to be working on creating and sharing out a save the date announcement for folks. We're going to start building the NBCC web pages and start building out the proposal rubric. The way we are going, November, we should be confirming those learning objectives, and which means we'll be working toward launching the call for proposals. So we wanna make sure that we have those pieces, that we present the objectives along with the rubric at the next meeting, so that we can move those things forward. So those are the next steps. So look out for an email from us later on this week with that link. You'll have a couple weeks to think through those objectives. And I think that is all. I will turn it over to our chairs, Grace and Tiana, to officially close this out.
Everyone, thank you so much for all of your work and us being such a wonderful fluid team to just blow away our USBC group in terms of our ability to get through this a little faster than they thought we would. That's amazing. Grace, how are you feeling about things?
I feel empowered. I think women's power is amazing. Thank you everyone for your hard work and your hard thinking.
Yes, absolutely. Enjoy your extra half an hour of the day. Do some self-care or something. Yes, self-care. And we'll be meeting up. Oh, but we have homework. We're working on our wordsmithing for our art. So we have homework. However,
Objectives.
half an hour free, we'll set those objectives. So we'll work on those and enjoy your Monday. And we'll be meeting back up the first Monday of November, which will be here soon.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Don't forget to check your
Thank you.
email.
Bye, everybody.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank
Bye.
you. Take care.
Thank you.